Hi, I'm ED-SKaR, and I've been painting models for a long time, usually as gaming pieces, but there are some parts of games that aren't just the infantry and vehicles. There is also terrain and objective markers. Now, whilst you certainly can use tiddlywinks or a terrain piece as an objective marker, sometimes it's just nice to build something in theme with your armies. And so, as a fun little project, that's what I'm doing today. A long while ago I printed out some 32mm bases, and these will be perfectly adequate for our objectives today. And why not start with some fuel drums? These are from Skytrex, and I also have some British flimsies that came with the M3 Stuart tank that either I have already done a video on or am going to be doing a video on soon, depending on when this video comes out. With the flimsy fuel cans being British, I may as well make the base for this objective marker for that army. And so, after a quick bit of shaving to make sure the drum sat flat, I broke out the superglue and baking powder. Of course, real sand, when used on models in scale, is a little large, and it looks very good as gravel, but not so much like sand. Baking powder, with its finer grain, looks very good as sand in scale, and also makes for a very strong glue, rather than just superglue by itself. I did make sure to add some extra around the base to cover up the gaps. So with that one objective marker complete, very quickly and easily, what to do for a second? In a video from late last year, I made up the Rubicon Kettenkrad, and it came with an infantry cart that I didn't use. It has an optional canvas cover, and I decided to put that on this time, and onto the next base it went. Again, plenty of superglue, but this time with real sand because I wanted that larger grain size for this one to match my German army models. And that was no effort at all, partly because the cart was already built. But how about something equally easy using leftovers from the bits box? The Soviet infantry sprue has this little satchel for maps or intelligence reports, and that sounds like something the enemy would like to capture. I also grabbed a spare Nagant revolver, and from the old Citadel Bretonian archers, this tree stump. And I glued these all down as if an officer had come over to use the tree stump to rest, or maybe to use it as a little table. And I quickly primed them up in grey, but the Soviet objective does need the same texture as the infantry, which goes on after priming rather than before. This is my mudcake mix of flour, PVA glue and brown craft paint, with a tiny sprinkle of salt to stop mould and just a touch of sand for some extra texture. And whilst that's drying out, I'll get to painting the others. My British fuel drums, they get the usual boring military green, and the sand starts off life orange. You'll notice I'm not so careful about the orange, and when I dry brush the sand colour over the top, I'm even less so. This makes for a little dusty effect to the bottom of the fuel drums, showing that they've picked up sand and dirt from their environment. It may have been a little much, so I came back with some of the green and stippled over the sand effect to bring back the original colour just a little bit. And whilst I was in the stippling mood, a little brown and a little black to show damage as well. And on top of that, just a little edge highlight with a lighter green. The flimsy fuel cans got a silver metallic with a black wash over the top, a very quick and easy way of painting metals. But whilst I had the black wash out, I dribbled some lines from the biggest stippled damage spots as if the damage has caused the drums to leak. And that's all it really took, just a quarter hour or so of easy techniques whilst I watched YouTube. Next up is the German infantry supply cart, and if I'm to match the base, I may as well also match the paint of the cart to the Kettenkrad I did before, except this time with a way easier painting method. Instead of my careful layers of the blue-grey, I just stippled it on quite heavily, leaving just some of the grey primer visible. Then I mixed in some black with the blue-grey and lighter stippling this time to create the mottled surface texture similar to the way I did on the Kettenkrad. I wonder how this would look on a larger surface, but the small surfaces here, it hits the spot just right. There is, of course, plenty of opportunity for some edge highlighting, you can't stop me, and the wheels got just one simple coat of black, and the canvas on top I base coated with a green mixed with black. And I highlighted that up with just the green, which is a dark green to begin with, and so the whole thing is very dark and desaturated. Now this car could easily be carrying any type of supply to be an objective marker, but as the Kettenkrad's transfer sheet contained the Red Cross symbol, now it's medical supplies useful for any side. And yes, I've complained about transfers before, and they have improved over the years, but I still prefer to freehand. The shininess of the transfer is one thing I don't like, but that is easily knocked down with some matte varnish. And once that was all dry, I doused the whole thing in a brown wash. My camera decided to change settings on me again, and so the whole footage is brown apparently as well. Last step to match my basing of the German infantry is the clump foliage mixed with PVA glue, and someday I'll learn a technique to put this down neatly, but that is not this day. The mud of the Soviet intel has dried, and so I can paint up the satchel, pistol and tree stump, which honestly is just varying shades of brown and very quick and easy to do, with a touch of silver for the gun. And as it's so small, it only took about 3 minutes. And for another 3 minutes, so I can pretend I did any amount of work on it, the mud got dry brushed with grey and then white. And this is how I've been doing the basing for my Soviets, and it'll match those nicely. I had considered doing footprints in the snow, but I wasn't quite sure how, and so I left them off this time. I will experiment on that in the future. And so, all told, 3 easy objective markers that match the infantry for my armies. A desert fuel supply, a forest medical cart, and snowy intel. Post a comment below if you have any other ideas for the kind of quick and easy objective marker. I'm ED-SKaR, always will be, and thank you very much for watching.